So let's bring you the latest news update. And security analyst Dr. Kwesi Enin says the Council of State and the Peace Council must step in to diffuse growing agitation or tensions over the Electoral Commission's handling of the disqualification of some presidential hopefuls seeking to contest the 2016 general elections.
And this was after the EC on Tuesday gave an indication to some of the disqualified aspirants that had identified more errors in their nomination forms. Dr. Enin says the Electoral Commission must comply with Monday's Supreme Court ruling directing it to allow the aspirants to correct the initial errors identified.
11 of the political parties were on Monday given another chance by the Apex Court to correct errors on their nomination forms after the Electoral Commission had disqualified them. There was, however, fresh concern about new errors the EC claims it has identified on the forms of parties, including the PPP and the NDP. Dr. Kwesi Enin says, in the interest of the nation, the EC must come clear on the exact errors wants the candidates to correct.
I cannot make a correction to a mistake I've made as assessed by you if I don't know the mistake. So there are fundamental, commonsensical, practical reasons why the EC, taking into consideration the larger, more critical national interest and stability issues, must engage the parties and to ensure that if those mistakes are dealing with ticks instead of crosses in boxes, then they can be done as quickly as possible. It is not in the interest of only one institution to say these are the rules and I'm going to interpret them as stringently as possible and in my own time and as and when I want. No. I think the national interest, and the national interest here is the peace of mind of Ghanaians to go about their business and to vote and to let this country continue running. That is what must guide every single decision that's made.
Meanwhile, the National Peace Council says it is important for the EC to desist from putting any more impediments in the way of the candidates. Council Chairman Reverend Professor Emmanuel Asante wants the Commission to refrain from behaviors that will be construed as a deliberate attempt to get some persons off the ballot.
The spirit of the ruling is that they should be given opportunity also to be part of the whole process. And I would wish that the Electoral Commission would do the best that they can to ensure that the spirit of the ruling is carried out. I will humbly plead with the EC to be circumspect and for the sake of the peace of Mother Ghana, ensure that they do right things, help them to do right things. Of course, I mean, at the end of the day, if somebody hasn't done what is expected of them once they've been given the proper opportunity and hearing, they still have not been able to do it, they will have themselves to blame. But the EC should not give the impression that they are out there simply to ensure that some people are disqualified. That is the impression that is being created. And they should disabuse the minds of the public by showing that they are ready to really help these ones come on board.
Both speakers were speaking on the sidelines of a book launched by the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center on managing election-related conflict and violence for democratic stability in Ghana. Matilda Pamagan for Joy News, Accra.
A former commissioner for the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Justice Emil Short, fears that Ghana may be plunged into a constitutional crisis if the multiplicity of cases being brought against the Electoral Commission is not resolved as speedily as possible.
And Justice Short describes the recent development between the Electoral Commission and the disqualified presidential aspirants, in which the Commission has identified many more errors in their nomination forms as disturbing. He's therefore urging the Electoral Commission to develop a timetable that would ensure that nomination and disqualification processes do not occur too close to the election dates going forward. He was speaking at the launch of a new voter education initiative, Vote March Ghana, in Accra by the Africa Center for International Law and Accountability.
If these actions continue, we might be faced with a constitutional crisis if the elections cannot be held on the 7th of December, I find these new development where the EC is saying that it has discovered new irregularities in the nomination forms. Very disturbing, because one would assume that in the initial scrutiny of the forms, every irregularity would have been disclosed. So if the EC disqualified these candidates on specific grounds, and the Supreme Court has now said that they should be given the opportunity to go back and to correct the errors and so on, I find it strange that the EC is now, at this late hour, is now discovering new irregularities, which might be used to say that these candidates are still disqualified, and then we'll have to go back to court. So this is quite a very disturbing development, and I hope that the EC can find a way of ensuring that, you know, we avoid multiplicity of actions, which would make it very difficult for us to hold the elections on the 7th of December.
And that's it for the news this morning, and we're taking a break. When we come back, we'll bring you a lot more news updates with what has been published on the front and back pages of the various newspapers. We'll also look at a lot more stories on news portals.